my view is quite simple, is that a good operator, like Sky for example, will be expanding the channel lineup as much as it can, taking third-party channels in, and within the economies of delivering a channel that works on subscription advertising, satellite bandwidth, they'll get as many channels as they can.
Yeah.
You move to internet or IP-based delivery, suddenly the economics change. Now, adding third-party publishers to a pay TV operator, where the TV operator is still managing the guide, the discovery experience, the overall user experience, should be business as usual.
Yeah,
it's like adding more channels, but with a different delivery model.
Well, except
there's more content is going to make their proposition better.
Yeah, no, I think in that context, the OTT provider is a friend to the pay TV operator potentially. But if I'm a very powerful OTT operator, if I've got a huge brand
like Netflix
or like Love Film or whatever, or HBO if they begin to do it directly, or Walt Disney is probably the big example, who are going to try and throw their weight around, I don't want you to be managing where I appear in the EPG.
I think this is a really interesting subject. Will the studios go direct and circumvent the value chain that is feeding?
And even more, the sports rights holders.
And I think, you know, in the economics of the industry will sort that out. You know, if you look at the content that's available on iPlayer or Sky Player, Hulu, it's complementary to the distribution models they've already got, and it's actually got the publishers behind it, but they're bearing in mind, you know, my masters are these MSOs that pay me these big carriage fees. And I think down to, you know, take a difficult example, like, will you ever see Netflix appear on a pay TV operator that's got a huge VOD library and direct studio relationships? Probably not in the short term, because it will be seen as cannibalistic.
Exactly.
But could you imagine a scenario where it was fully managed? Someone searches for 2001: A Space Odyssey, and the system that's managed by the operator comes back and says, yeah, you can have it right now, buy it as part of your movies package from us for free, or you can stream it, or you can buy it to own from Netflix for X. We'll take a commission, you know, and provide a sort of price comparison service where whatever the consumer chooses, they make money.
But it comes down to the deals that could be cut, doesn't it? I mean, that's what it is.
And that's why it's a managed environment.
But that's the difference, isn't it? People talk about OTT as being, or they see it as being free, rather than managed. Immediately it's managed, it's within the existing environment. OTT as a free service becomes something that's very difficult for anyone to quite work out how it's going to fit into the existing model. Well,
except people like Rovi, of course, will tell you that they now have this marvellous, I think they're now calling it Total Guide rather than Liquid Guide, as it was called initially, quite correctly. Which now, you know, will plug into N number of manufacturers they've done deals with in terms of connected TV, which is the other thing we need to talk about anyway in terms of over-the-top services, which, you know, is intuitive, it's got recommendation engines, it's got crowdsourcing, it's got social TV functionality, on the roadmap, I think, rather than necessarily, you know, actually working now. And you know, if Netflix is then going to be an app within that, and Love Film is going to be an app within that, and something else is going to be an app within that, why would I need a set-top box? Why would I need a pay TV operator? I mean, is a world going to evolve where, in the same way as right now, there's pay TV people and there's Freeview people?
Do you mind if I jump in there? Because what Rovi do with Total Guide and what MiniWeb do with our broadband content guide are actually very similar. You know, providing the cloud-based services. We don't replace the grid necessarily, because we coexist with the grid, but they're definitely on the right road in terms of providing these new discovery tools around broadband content and allowing the guide, whether it's one application or multiple sets of things merged together, to be the management interface. And if it's the management interface, then it does allow the operators to still be in that control point. And in that respect, Total Guide and MiniWeb are just as applicable to OTT manufacturers as they are to pay TV operators.
But they seem to see their model more in doing the deals with Samsung and with Sharp and with Toshiba, and getting a license for Rovi being in the flat screen television.
I mean, they're delivering a guide, really, and then they're delivering the metadata behind the guide, and somebody else has to plug in the service to it.
That's right.
So you know, they're fulfilling a requirement in the marketplace.
But when they start chucking in, you know, that kind of functionality, what implications does that have for the chips that have to go into the televisions, and therefore the price of the televisions and the potential obsolescence of the televisions going forward? Because this has been, you know, if you like, the hardware argument against connected TVs is you don't want that kind of obsolescence built into your television, which is more expensive.
I think the bigger issue for a lot of the TV manufacturers is who handles support relative to connected TV.
who answers the call if there's problems. Because right now there's not a lot of margin in television, so there's not a lot of additional money that they can put into, and there's no real way for them to monetize the benefits of the connectivity after they've sold the TV.
This is important because the way the mini-web model works is that we act as an agent for the content publishers. So the content publishers still have a direct-to-consumer relationship, but we're acting as an agent for things like payment, personalization, and things. For the manufacturers, we're acting as a cloud-based service that's provided on their behalf. So we're acting on the manufacturer's behalf in this respect. So we handle support for the manufacturer to the consumer because they're not interested in that. Yeah. But we do provide recurring revenue streams back to the manufacturer in return for that, and that's derived from keeping a share of the revenues generated by being an agent for the content providers. So in that respect, the business models work. The manufacturer doesn't have to get involved in end user support because he's got a partner that does that, and the publishers can get onto more devices through that partner than they would otherwise do.
I mean, certainly from the point of view of the chip itself, and one of the huge challenges is the standards again. So it comes down to, you guys don't care about the standards. You shouldn't. You should be able to just, from our point of view, we have to go, well, good old Google is just about to launch VP8, probably free of charge, going to mess that market up. We've got a Chinese requirement, we've got real in China, we've got all these new standards that are coming along because you're getting the internet merging with broadcast TV that have to be supported in the chip so that the rest of the marketplace can go, great, it's going to work. And that's the challenge we have, to make all these things work effectively.
So you end up with quite a much more powerful chip than you might need, but you just don't know whether you might need it or not.
It's convergence. Everything has to be supported. If you want the internet to your TV, you can't just suddenly turn it on and go, oh, well, we don't have Flash, we don't have VPA.
Well, this is the point, actually. We use these terms interchangeably, the web and the internet, but they're not the same thing. The web is a browser-based user experience on the internet based around hyperlinking and interactivity. But the web is the internet is a network, and it delivers things other than the web as services. You get your mail through it, you get your messaging through it, your FTP and all the other things. The key thing from the internet that's relevant to TV is the video and entertainment sources directly. So the question is, when we talk about the web and the internet, we must use these terms accurately. The internet being connected to TV and converging will bring internet media to the TV experience, but not necessarily the web as the user interface.
To the chip experience too, just to go back to that for the moment, the set-top box is actually a very complicated processor now. It'll have between 7 and 11 different engines, including a graphics processor. So the amount of compute power that you'll put in a set-top box today to cover all these upward services and so on is much more than traditionally you put into a television. And right now there is no margin or place for adding additional cost in a television. So to be able to add the flexibility for connected services going forward, I think is very difficult to do in a TV in a way that makes sure it's robust against changes in standards going forward. So.
I think we need to consider also the content. We're talking about application, we are talking about consuming content from the internet, but premium content is really regional based. So you cannot watch the same content that you have in UK. iPlayer doesn't work somewhere else. Yeah. So if a TV manufacturer is signing a deal of putting an application there, would it work everywhere? Because he definitely wants to sell the same TV all over around. So this is a huge problem for them. Yeah. And on the other hand, for having the content locally, you need a service provider. You need someone to give you service, to have the content. And this is where you need a localized services, a set-top box which can be tailored or sold with the service. TV, in the US, you have 300 million people, so Netflix can work there. There is a huge market. What happens in other areas?